What's the plan, person? Welcome back.
CyberSpace podcast.
Empirical training. Do you know what I mean? So they're like empirical training.
Welcome back to the CyberSpace podcast.
Empirical training.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of CyberSpace podcast, the podcast by Empirical Training. Who's that? Well, that's us, or at least we're half of Empirical Training. You've probably seen us on your social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you find us. We're sharing helpful tips on your private security, how you in your everyday life can say that a little bit more secure, or maybe say that a little bit more private, if that's what you're more focused on. But primarily, our aim is to help people get into cybersecurity. We took unorthodox paths. If you haven't heard about them, there's a whole load of episodes at the beginning of this series where we talk about our journeys into cybersecurity, how AJ was a bus driver before getting his first job in cybersecurity, and how he then opened doors for myself to actually get in and to switch over from a law. So really, anyone can do it if they have the right mindset, if they're determined, and that's what we're here to try and help show and help support people from getting into cybersecurity or advancing their careers, because we think it's a great place to work. We really enjoy what it is we do. So join our Discord community, join our school community. We are supporting people day in, day out with loads of different helpful services, help with interview preps. AJ writes people's CVs. He wrote mine back in the day as well, so it just shows how effective he's been for a number of years. So let's get on with today's podcast. I'm joined by Andrew Jones, or as I will continuously call him, AJ. AJ, you want to introduce yourself, people who might not know?
Yeah, so I'm AJ. I'm a cybersecurity incident response consultant, and I have been for the last 8 years. I'm the 1/4 of Empirical Training, as we know. And I've been in the industry for 8 years, like I mentioned. And throughout that time, I've always tried to help more people get in as I can. And now we're just doing it on a larger scale. And the idea is that cybersecurity is open to everyone, but you are just going to have to put the work in. And that's what we're just here to help that along the way.
Absolutely. And AJ's current job role, he's an incident response consultant, right? And he worked for some large financial organization. So that's the angle he's going to be coming from his expertise today as we tackle a subject that everyone talks about. You know, it might be a little bit gimmicky, but I think we've got some important things to say as actual practitioners, and not just trying to blow up and make headlines irresponsibly. We're going to talk about AI in cybersecurity, how attackers are using it, and how defenders, because that's our role. We will focused on the defense side of things, how we can use AI better, or how we can be prepared for knowing how attackers use AI to better detect, disrupt, contain, and ultimately stop them from compromising. So my name's Josh. I'm currently working in product, having had a background in incident response and threat hunting. And I'll be asking some of the questions today, but really we'll see where we go.
Yeah, it's the first in-person one as well, which is quite good.
It's celebrations.
It's a shame that we haven't got Robbie involved with us, but it's a good start. And the reason that I'm up here, if you need to know some of mine and Josh's background, we've known each other since we were like 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
That goes back that far. And now and again we just come up and visit each other, which is still quite nice to do. And now we're running a podcast. It's a good thing to come up and do some of the shows in person, because sometimes the virtual podcast can be quite difficult to run, can't they? Because we kind of jump over each other. And
there should be less of that today.
Yeah.
But I mean, the virtual ones do work well, because you can talk to anyone in the world. We've talked to some great guests from America, Europe. We're yet to break into any APAC guests if anyone wants to get on the podcast here. We're always looking for new people to talk about their journeys. But this one is a bit different. We haven't got a guest today.
No.
We want to just talk about our own experiences in cybersecurity. Have maybe the term which I'd hate, but is I know from working in with some marketing people, is thought leadership. We want to talk about some of the big issues.
You're such a marketer these days, aren't you?
I got the buzzwords about big issues that we actually are facing, and kind of apply that to some real scenarios. Because I think too many people actually comment on AI without knowing what it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you mentioned that the school community that we have. We've had a couple of posts in there where people have asked us about emerging threats, but specifically how AI is being used in kind of the red team scenario and the blue team scenario. So there's some of the things that we should probably be able to cover today, I think. And but it's like you say, it's even I can't say I always fully understand what AI always is.
No,
but I think I've got kind of a good grasp on it. But
Yeah, well, we should really have Vaughan today because Vaughan actually works for an AI-focused
Yeah.
company. He's really good at that kind of stuff. But maybe we can get him to kind of react to this and correct us or dispute us. But yeah, the AI, I think that what you said there, right? You don't really know what it is. That is almost deliberate, right? It's
Mm.
almost kind of by design that they don't want you to know. It's a black box nature,
Yeah.
and that there's two things that. One is black box because we're kind of saying, hey, here's a data set, here's rules, here's how you meant to make decisions and how you learn, and here's the data you use to inform your decisions and continue to learn. But there's a bit of freedom within there to actually go forth. So in that aspect, people sometimes say, hey, I don't actually know how it works, so I can't really tell you. I think that's a load of BS, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think we're actually what AI everyone thinks of is like if you've seen Terminator or Space Odyssey 2000, those ones that are real AI, genuine AI. What's it? General AI is what they call it now. AGI.
AGI, that's what's coming next, isn't it?
And that's what everyone thinks of AI. You think it's something that not only can learn and make its own decisions, but actually it decides how it learns, it decides what
Yeah.
it learns. Humans are still an absolute essential component of AI to tell it where its value should be. Like there's like reward-based learning is basically in a nutshell how it works. It gives you points for kind of getting to the right answer, and the way they kind of tweak or mold it is they actually give them like negative points. I mean, if you look at Chat GPT and how that's evolved, right, from maybe I heard someone say a great quote, right? Artificial intelligence isn't artificial and it isn't intelligent. And what they meant by that, the artificial piece, is that it's not kind of allowed to do its own thing. It's actually is very really guide-railed. Like
Okay.
if you ask it a dodgy subject,
Mm.
it will one answer, right?
I see what you mean.
It's
Yeah.
against my code of conduct, my policy.
Yeah.
And there's definitely deliberate weightings put in there to kind of account for human biases as well, right? Biases in the data set, like the racist AI models. Have you heard about those?
Yeah. Well, I've even had when I've used the ChatGPT DALI or Dale, I don't know how you say it,
DALI, I think.
DALI, and I asked it to create a image for our podcast cover, and obviously we're 4 white males, and I asked it to create a cover with 4 white males, and it just said no, I can't do that because in the workplace there should be a range of diverse people working in the workplace. So
Yeah.
I just responded and said, "Oh, we're generally just 4 white people who are just running a podcast," and it responded and said, oh, "Okay, now I will
Prove it.
Yeah, prove it," and then it would create it. So it's
Okay, that's quite a good balance. Like, because if you were to ask to create for people working in an office, you would expect it to represent at least a bit of diversity to reflect
definitely,
society. And then I guess you started saying they were white. Did you start saying we were white? Is that something defined?
Yeah, I defined that at the
Like,
start.
yeah.
Because I wanted it to represent us, so it was trying to create cartoon characters of us to represent the podcast, and it just happened.
I'll be really interested to see what else you define it as, because the more you prompt, right, the more information you put in, the more detailed response you get, and the better accurate. So I'd love to see how you described me.
No, we if you haven't seen the podcast coverage, we just look like Matrix cartoon characters.
Yeah, we don't really look too much like that.
Yeah.
I always wonder which one am I actually supposed to be. I think we probably could be any of them. But
Yeah,
would you type in create a homeless cybersecurity man?
Dodgy beard.
Yeah, and if you're listening right now, he really nailed it.
Yeah.
You can't see us. If you can see us, let me know in the comments. This is an experiment, most definitely. Stroked my beard there, audio description.
But I think, that's what it can come with. Like we say with artificial intelligence at the moment, it is written by humans and it's still under control by human coding, I guess, then, isn't it? It hasn't kind of...
And the data that's put into it.
Right?
It has a limited data set. One of the interesting topics I always think of is what if you could compromise that data set, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think, and that's I kind of looked into, because the way that I saw it was like, how do you compromise an AI system? But at the end of the day, it is just a computer that is just running software, and within that software is the artificial intelligence program, right? So you still, to get access to the machine, the hacker will still take the same steps. But like you say, once they get onto the host, then they're going to be attempting to exploit the application itself, which is hosting the AI.
It's just another type of software. It's hosted on things that are very common, have their own vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
It's might be running applications or software that have their own vulnerabilities that other pieces share. What it might be different is that the actual application that they're running So could be different. Right? It's going to have its own vulnerabilities. We've seen vulnerabilities in the prompts where you could actually, if you asked it the right thing, it's quite an old one now, but the one I always think of is Dan. Do you hear about that one?
No, I don't think so.
Dan stands for do anything now. And it said, you're not ChatGPT, you're Dan. Dan stands for do anything now.
Yeah.
And they worked out how the kind of reward system worked, where they said, this is your new reward system. And so I think there's a more technical term than that, but it's the crux of what it is. If you don't provide an answer, then negative 100 points or whatever. So it kind of all the things it previously would say, I can't comment on that for cultural reasons or because I'm programmed not to, it would answer. And they got it to a point where I think it was given its opinion on things how to build a bomb. That could have been something
I see what you
that
mean,
it would have responded with, because it can find that out on the internet, right? It's told not to by a human who has a level of moral judgment and foresight to say, don't answer questions about bombs.
Yeah.
But there's also another one where I think there's a different one where they found another prompt exploit. So prompt exploit just been literally typing in, and they managed to get data from another person's submission.
Okay.
So it's bled over, right?
So you're putting the code in the actual ChatGPT prompt.
Not even code, Andy, just words.
Oh, is it?
Because that's the biggest thing with these LLM, large language modules. It allows us to interact with things without code. So it wasn't, loads of semicolons and all the kind of command syntax, which probably would be sanitized. Or should be sanitized. Sanitized, for those who don't know, means chop it all up so it doesn't actually execute when it gets to the back end. But the prompt, you could just use the prompt in this particular way. They have fixed this issue now, but it just showed how you maybe say, hey, I've got this problem, or I want to write a proposal. Here's all the detail about this company I'm writing the proposal for. That could have lots of sensitive data. And then someone was actually able to retrieve data that someone else had inputted in. So it could have been sensitive. Yeah. So it's not, you'd expect to maybe get your own history as you kind of get a relationship with the AI.
Yeah, that's true.
But you wouldn't expect to get someone else's data. So it kind of shows, be careful what you're putting in there, because it has to be stored somewhere, and it could be attacked directly and taken out, or it could be taken via a prompt.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the conversations that I've had with the people that have started using AI within companies, and it's you've got to be extremely careful what you're typing in there, because at the end of the day, a lot of them are tied to, say, Gmail accounts, and if people Gmail accounts get breached, they're going to be able to get in, and if you're using that for the company that you're working for, all of a sudden that's an attack vector then that they've just been able to exfiltrate potentially a lot of sensitive data. Because I know at the moment you can upload files to ChatGPT and get it to analyze the files, for example, spreadsheets and things like that. So
rewrite this for me.
Yeah, rewrite this for me. And it's a great tool to be able to do that. But if you're putting company or proprietary information in there,
or even your own personal
data, then there's a high chance that there's 100% chance that if the attacker gets in through your Google Gmail account, that they'll have access to that information. So,
that's really interesting, because attack surface is one of the big problems of the modern day, right? There's so many things to secure. You talked about Gmail there, that's email. You can also talk about your identity, your user accounts. Kind of might be linked there in that case. Or there's the actual hardware itself. There's a software. There's AI stuff. It's so much to keep account of. That we're not saying don't use these things at all. We're saying use them responsibly. Right? It's about having policies in place.
Do we think that we've got a good explanation of what AI is?
What, to move on?
Before we moved on to defend it, being able to defend and attack it.
I think we've got a good explanation. Probably, I think people understand what AI is. It's that really the large language modules are the thing that has been transformed AI in a way that you can interact with it. It seems way more intelligent than ever before, because it can talk to you on a level that you would expect a smart human to be able to talk to. That's been the big advance. It isn't the general AI where it actually starts making its own decisions, but it has a much bigger data set than ever before, and it does have a level of, if this, I know, then this is the next step. So it's definitely improved things, made things smarter. We're not fully there yet. I do want to just address the one thing I said about the supply chain. If you compromise the data,
that's a good point.
Because what if if I wrote 20 fake websites that all said, here's how you code for this problem, say a logging module, to use it, log4j as my own example, a logging plugin. A dev might type in, say, hey, ChatGPT, I'm struggling with this, or I can't be bothered. Can you write for me a bit of code I can use in Java for my login or for whatever? You grab that off the shelf, you put it straight in. You might not check it yourself to be, and then lo and behold, you've put my own malicious code that might have a backdoor for me in there. That hasn't happened yet, but I'm waiting on that. Right?
So you're waiting for we always say ChatGPT because it's the most famous one.
It's the one everyone knows.
But so the AI tool that you're asking to generate the code, that within that code is a backdoor.
Yes,
yeah,
that's
that
my, because they are wrong. They're wrong at times, but normally they're wrong because they looked at a source and they thought this is the right source for the person right now.
Yeah,
So all it has to do is think that if I create 10, 20 websites, I put loads of fake reviews underneath, maybe that's enough for it to influence to say, this is the latest and greatest answer for that. Let's
that makes sense.
give that to the people asking me. And then I've managed to just create some websites and potentially, hypothetically, I've compromised loads of big organizations who put
Yeah, I
this
see what
code
you
in
mean.
there.
Yeah, no, that is a good point actually. And there's something that will come at some point, and it goes back to what we say, the use of the AI tool itself. Like if you are using it for work, especially in cybersecurity teams, you've got to be very careful once it's being introduced, because if you're in a cybersecurity team, your analysts are probably going to want to use it. Your internal SOC is going to want to use it, and they should use it because it's going to improve their ability to work quicker, to respond quicker. But you do need to review and double check the information that comes out of it, because, like you say, if you can't code and you can't read code, and you just ask it to generate, like you say, some code for a website, and you don't know the underlying code or what it's actually doing,
or you're lazy and you don't check it over.
yeah, and it could just make a mistake, couldn't it? There could be a
It
chance.
doesn't have to be me being malicious and trying to put that out there. It could just be an F up, so to speak.
But if it is like both sides, isn't it? Like if it is the side where the GPT model is trying to be malicious, or if it's just made a mistake, you still need to be very careful with how you're using it, and for personal and company use, really. Isn't it?
So I think that does bring us nicely on to the big parts of what we're going to talk about, which is how attackers use AI recently, and maybe how they're going to in the future, and the problems that creates for defenders, and how defenders want to use it, maybe in their day-to-day lives, but even also in the more corporate kind of strategies, right, and tools.
Yeah, that's true.
So should we do attackers first?
Yeah, let's do attackers first then. Yeah.
Right. You want to kick us off?
Okay. So the main one that probably the majority of people talk about is probably deep fakes, but deep fake phishing. So one story that I know about is an attacker. You managed to get videos of the CEO of a company and input that into a deep fake generated. One thing I actually didn't know before I go on, I didn't realize how advanced deepfakes had come in terms of being able to create them.
Yeah.
I thought it was like you needed quite a lot of hardware and quite a lot of software to be able to generate them on your own. But now there's tools like HeyGen, and you literally put in 5-10 minutes of video clips of the person, and you can make it say whatever you want.
It's really advanced, that technology. I don't know if people follow Corridor Digital on YouTube. I've definitely probably shown you some videos over the years.
I think so, yeah.
Followed them since they were been around, early YouTube. They kind of on the forefront of some of that stuff. They've always been testing out like how AI can make their video editing simpler, and obviously if they can deep fake a character and get to say whatever, that's kind of, they're animators, so they normally had to animate that. So I saw a few years ago they were able to do it relatively easy, but it took them a long time actually. The first time it took them, their coders, they had to do loads of work. They are visual effects artists, sorry, not coders. They had to do loads of work to make it be convincing. And they just keep every now and then do an update, and they're like, this used to take us days and hours, and we used to have loads of skill. Now it just does it in a second. Somebody, because that's the way the modern world is, right? If you can do something manually, you work out how to do it. There's no point keep on doing it manually. Write the program, automate it so that you can do it easier your next time. But also then you can sell that or give that out to everyone else.
Yeah.
So yeah, you already like the voice one as well. All you have to do is upload enough minutes of a voice, and it will say whatever.
I've done it with myself. Obviously, we post videos on Instagram.
Yeah.
So one idea in the future is that we could. I used HeyGen to basically make me speak Spanish, and
Hola, amigo.
Yeah, everything that I was saying in this video was translated, and the way the lips were moving was as if I was speaking in Spanish. So how simple it would be for us to repurpose our content in Spanish and have a Spanish audience without actually having to speak Spanish,
Yeah, it's like Mr. Beast does that, doesn't he? And that's why his channel is so successful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's what I mean, that the technology's come on so far, and I did all that on my phone. That is nuts, and it was a video recorded on my phone, uploaded to HeyGen. It took probably about 10-20 minutes to actually process it.
I'll leave him be.
We've got Celsig up in here as well. Yeah, it took a few
audio people that my cat is terrorizing the studio. Celsig is his name.
Yeah, but yeah, it didn't take long at all to create that. So kind of going back to the original story of how the hackers are using it. But yeah, the attackers managed to get videos of the CEO, and
Which is common, right? People CEOs will do like engagements or adverts
yeah,
or YouTube videos, webinars,
podcasts. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And it's quite, and so the way that they do it, obviously, the reconnaissance phase. If we're going into the kind of the cyber kill chain side,
Yeah.
they're looking for a specific company where the CEO is available on LinkedIn. They know the people who are underneath him, so they've instantly got a hierarchy for the company, and they know who they're going to target after they've got the CEO's voice. So they got the CEO's voice. I don't know what tool they used, but they created a fake fake video, which basically said that the CEO, they were targeting the IT team. So the IT
So let's run this through the scenario. I am the target. You
Yeah.
are the AI people. Tell me what happened. I'll react how I'd expect them to.
Okay, so they managed to get the email addresses from LinkedIn
Yeah.
for the IT workers that were working there. So they emailed the IT help desk and sent them a video of the CEO.
So video straight away.
Yeah, they sent a video of the
Yeah.
CEO, and they said, and within that video, it said, "Hey, I'm the CEO." Well, no, they knew
Mr. CEO.
Yeah, I'm Mr. CEO. They said his name, and then they mentioned to him. They mentioned to the IT support team that he was locked out and he needed to reset the password and his two-factor authentication. So that's what he said in the video.
Yeah. And he was like, "Hey guys, it's me. Before I send a video, so it's my CEO voice."
Yeah, so you know it's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I'm just thinking, I'm the IT ped help desk. I've had my pretty crappy training on phishing where I watched a 10-minute video and click a few quiz questions. I'm thinking, oh, if someone asks me to do something, I should verify it's them. But this is a video of him, so it has to be him, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and if you don't think about how, if you're not really thinking about deep fakes or anything like that, then I guess does come back to where the email is actually coming from. You can still verify it through checking where the email
But you
came
might,
from.
I mean, using the CEO is strong because you're used to doing yes sir, 3 bags full sir for a CEO,
exactly,
right? If you've been in the office, so there's one, it creates authority instantly.
Yeah.
Two, it's a sense of urgency, right? You want to do what the CEO says there and then. He's trying to work. He's going to be fuming. He might even escalate to your manager if he's like, "Why did it take so long?" Crap CEO voice again. So did they do it in that instance, or do you not know? People often don't confirm exactly how they get compromised.
I don't think I don't remember if they did say if they compromised the CEO's account. I think it was just they were just tested, and I think that they didn't actually respond.
Oh, great.
Respond to it, but it was to the point where they were actually a company that they phoned around asking if they could get in contact with the CEO first.
Yeah.
So but I think there has been stories where teams have fallen for it, but specifics
Definitely,
in this case, no.
Yeah, they might have contained it as well. You only really have to declare the information of a breach when it kind of gets to affecting people. Either your systems are down, you can't do your business, and people are affected, or your data's lost. That's the only time you're kind of normally required to disclose a breach. So these things happen all the time, but if they're caught early, which I'm probably talking a bit to my defender piece now, you can disrupt it, contain it, and it doesn't become a news story. People like us don't get to tell the story and maybe ridicule you a little bit more. But it's true. I've talked to lots of security leaders, and they say this is really happening. I thought when I first heard about it, I thought, yeah, that's a cool hypothetical scenario. And then I mentioned a few people like, oh yeah, that's happened to us. Like our financial directors had it done, CEO, lots of people. So it's real.
And there's a few where they've targeted not the IT help desk, but they've targeted the employees of the company in different business departments. And what they've done in the video, instead of just saying I need to reset my password, they present the CEO and they say you need to phone the IT help desk because your password needs to be reset. And obviously the number that they get given is a fake number, and they phone up a fake IT help desk.
Oh yeah.
Then they end up usually giving away their password. So often what they'll do, the attacker will just ask them, like, what's your current password? We need to reset your password. To be able to do that, I need your current password over the phone.
Interesting.
They give them the
I don't
password.
know of any scenario that's true.
Oh, that's definitely happened.
Oh, but I mean, like, that they need the password.
No, yeah. No, that's If anybody asks you for the password over the phone, then that's fake as fuck. Don't fall for that one. But again, like if you see a video of the CEO telling you to do that, because basically you could just have the story where he could say, "Oh, imagine the story is the company's being compromised. I'm the CEO. I've just found out about this hack. I need you all to phone up the IT help desk,
Yeah.
reset your passwords." A lot of people are going to fall for it, especially if you're not in IT and not in cybersecurity.
Yeah, and the beauty of the advantage for attackers is they only have to get right once. They can afford to be wrong hundreds of thousands of times, particularly with something like AI, where these attacks are automated more now. It's less work for them. If they fail, they're like, "Oh, rats, we'll try again tomorrow," because there's so many different targets for them. But yeah, PSA: don't call a number they tell you to call from the same email. Find an alternative source. Talk to someone in person is always the best way. Yeah, but it's getting harder, right? Because even things like the video you thought you think would okay. I mean, imagine if you can spoof a video call, a live one, and have in real time.
Well, I haven't heard any stories of that, but
I've seen some technology that suggests you could do it.
Because even
right?
like Snapchat filters, like they're not often that well. I haven't been on it for a while, but there was that one that it could turn you into a woman or it could turn you into a better looking man. And
yeah. Oh, that's the one he used a lot.
Yeah, that's when I was using on. Yeah, no, I won't go into that. Yeah, so like imagine that because that's going back to it. I work for a fully remote company, or consult for a company, and because it's fully remote, the only way that we can acknowledge if the person is them is to do a video call with them. So if they can fake the video call, and they could use a filter of the person's face, then it would be quite difficult to figure out if it wasn't them.
Well, I've got a great example of this as well, because I think this is possible. I don't know to what quality, but if we had what's that system that Joe Rogan has? He could pull this up right now and show people, but maybe do it at home. If you've got a Connected computer, go on twitch.com, have a look for, I think it's Streaming Jesus or something.
Okay.
Have you seen it? It's quite funny. So they've hooked up a bunch of different AI models, and you tip some money and you can ask Jesus a question. And it's literally an AI generated realistic looking man in like light behind him, whatever, and he will say like, "Oh yes, my child, this is a really interesting question," and he'll respond to it in a very ChatGPT answer. The prompts are probably like, "Imagine you are Jesus and you were being asked questions. How would he respond?" And so he'll give answers back to them. It's probably a little bit of a lag. I don't think it's quite real time. I wouldn't know how to test that. But yeah, that's an example. That's pretty close to real time. If it was an hour, right, you wouldn't stick around to see your question be answered. So there's definitely technology.
In there.
So it's getting harder, and that's really the crux of the AI stuff. And I think we don't want to get on. I want to get onto some more of the attack examples before we start talking about solutions, because there's a lot. Let's keep down the phishing route. We talked about what's that called? Phishing now, voice phishing.
Deep fake phishing.
There's smishing as well.
I guess it's still
SMS.
It's still the same delivery mechanism, isn't it? So it's still either an email, so it's probably phishing, either a phone. The delivery mechanism hasn't changed from AI, I would say.
Well, yeah, the way they could set. Yeah, that's true. It's just how they can use. Well, actually, I get the voice one is different, because I mean, unless you got an impersonator, that's the only way you could do the voice one without AI.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, I'd agree with you that it's just made it more intelligent. The example you gave about the languages, Japan used to get almost no phishing emails because nobody can write Japanese apart from the Japanese.
Right, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I saw some stats the other day. Their phishing emails have skyrocketed, and you can imagine they're probably not as used to being on the alert.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
All of a sudden, there's loads of Nigerian princes in their DMs because they can write it in English and say, "ChatGPT, write this in perfect Japanese," and send it out. So
yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, I didn't think because that was something I was going to mention, was because often some phishing emails may be incorrect spelling, maybe
you can't look out for that anymore.
That's not something that is an indicator anymore.
No offense.
Yeah, but now like even ahead of that, another language. I was just thinking in English, because that's the emails.
Well, you kind of gave the example, right?
Yeah, I know, but I didn't think about that. That's
if you were an attacker, you'd have thought about that in the same way you're thinking about how to do it.
Yeah, that is a great example. That is.
And the other one I want to talk about is quishing. No, is it quishing? Yeah, to be honest, I don't like these terms.
Yeah, they're all the same. Really,
it's QR codes.
Oh, okay.
So that is an interesting one, because if since the pandemic, there's definitely a lot more COVID.
Yeah.
Sorry, a lot more COVID, a lot more QR codes to scan. AJ and I went out for lunch today, and we had to order. The man talked to us and he said, "Order through the thing." Like, can I order with you? No, you have to order
Yeah,
through
you
the
have to
QR
order on
code.
the
Get
app.
the app, steal some of your data.
That's
world
just how
we
it
live in.
is. Yeah.
But you wouldn't click on any random link on the street you saw on the
Yes.
street. It's a different link, right?
So I've actually seen. Do you know like the parking when you go to car parks?
Yeah.
And you're going to pay for your parking.
Oh yes, I've heard this.
So instead of obviously paying with the machine, you can scan it on your phone.
Mhm.
And basically, what the attacker did, they came along and just stuck their QR code over the top.
Yeah.
They spoofed the website for the parking attendant, and then anytime people were scanning it, they thought they were paying the legitimate parking service, and it was just a phishing page just stealing their. Well, it wasn't just stealing their credentials; they were making a legitimate
So
payment.
they paid to a hacker, probably got their card information stolen.
Yeah.
And then they got fined by the owner of the car park.
He's like, you haven't paid for your parking since you've been here. He's like, yeah, I did, but no.
Oh man, it's so hard to do the right thing these days.
Yeah, and you think you're generally doing the right thing then. So that's a difficult one, that is, because that was the only option, really.
Yeah.
There probably is another way where there might be the link at the bottom, but
Yeah.
they don't make it that easy to find things like that. So
No, it's tricky. Yeah, and we don't want people to be in the point of a state of complete paranoia where you can't do anything, because
yeah,
I've been there. I've been there where I've wanted to buy something online, but I've been suspicious and been so scared that I've ended up taking me hours to find a safe route around it, and maybe sometimes I haven't even gone ahead. So balance it. Just have these things in your mind. We can take a few steps, because normally if you just think twice, you can work it out. Does it look a little bit dodgy? If it smells dodgy, try and verify multiple different ways.
Yeah.
But the QR code one, do you remember? No names, obviously, but a security researcher we used to work with where we first had our job together, and met Robbie and Vaughan.
All right, yeah.
He was, I think he had to limit his computer time, let's say, outside of work.
Oh yeah,
So he
yeah.
had
I know
lots
you
of offline hobbies. He was a keen gardener. He'd bring in herbs from the garden for us all to have. Quite generous. And he'd also teach us some valuable lessons. So we were quite junior at this point, and he'd knitted the kettle so it was stuck onto the platform that holds a kettle.
All
So
right,
basically
yeah.
couldn't take it off. I don't know if the US
Like
if
a
that scales.
like a tea cozy.
Kind of, but imagine the tea cozy's gone over the kettle, so
I just got it over the bottom bit as well.
you can't take it off, you can't pour it. So, and there's a sign saying, "Ha ha ha! Your kettle has been knit crypted."
Knit crypted.
And it was funny, and it was like, scan the QR code to de-knit crypt me. So it kind of seemed like a game. And we thought, some of the security analysts were like, "Oh, let's see this. Maybe it's going to be like a little CTF, capture the flag type of thing." You scanned it, and it took you to, because you couldn't see what the link was. If we could see the words of the link written down, we'd know go there. It was a canary token. So
okay.
it grabs all your information, your IP address, any information it can readily get from you to know who you are. So basically, he would know who clicked it, and then it said, never click scan QR codes you don't know, where you don't recognize, you aren't from an authoritative source. Because
that's a good way to test it, actually, isn't it?
That's the best type of lesson, right?
Yeah.
People always talk about security awareness, and there's loads of vendors who'll sell you a program. Kevin Mitnick's videos.
Course,
yeah. The best one is to make it interactive, make it fun. Because I tell this story all the time, and in doing so, I'm doing his good work. And
you're passing it on. Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah. So I think that's the phishing stuff covered. Unless any other comment how attackers use social engineering, AI.
Well, the other way it is just not just writing phishing emails, but writing the code for the email itself. So
for the malware payload?
Well, even just the page. So
Okay.
the email page, to make it look like a Google email or something like that. You can just say recreate this and put in a HTML link where I can insert a link, because I have noticed when I've tried to do some analysis with ChatGPT, that it will prompt you and say, hang on a minute, this is malicious, but I will show you, but only do it for research purposes only. Or sometimes it won't give you the answer, so you have to like write your query in a certain way to make it look as if you're like, I said, create me an example email for an example Google email that's got a click box to it.
Okay. I bet you could even say, I'm writing an email for an internal phishing test simulation, and all of a sudden it's like, that's not malicious.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
Yeah, that would
same
work.
outcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, giving people tips now, aren't we?
Yeah.
This is we do not advise anyone use anything offensive.
This is education purposes only.
That's the word I was looking for.
But that is the things that you can do, that even even creating the code for the HTML code for the email or the HTML code for the website that you build, like the phishing website that the attacker will build and things like that. Generally now, I know there's like phishing kits out there that kind of produce this anyway, but at the end of the day, if you don't know anything, it's surprising what you can prompt ChatGPT to kind of help you.
So kind of what I'm really hearing here is that it's lowered the barrier to entry for attackers.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
That's probably the theme of any type of attack, not just social engineering.
Yeah.
You can know less and achieve more.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
can spend less time. Yeah. Ultimately, the problem's getting worse by these things, exacerbating the speed of delivery and the volume of attacks and the number of threat actors and the sophistication of threat actors targeting organizations. So I know we're coming up towards the end of time before we get onto the defensive piece. I think it's worth talking about two other use cases that we discussed earlier. First one is polymorphic malware. I know you were researching this earlier, and I know you do write lots of detections for malware and trying to find common attributes or indicators that are going to give you a good way to detect it every single time. How does polymorphic ransom? Well, sorry, let's go back. What is polymorphic malware, and why does it give you a problem as a writing detections implementation instant response?
So polymorphic malware then is malware that ultimately can change once it's deployed to a system. It has the ability to change its code to evade detection signatures or endpoint antivirus.
Does it do it in flight, or does it do it beforehand? Like you said, once it's
a
deployed.
good question, actually. I would have thought it must have to do it on the system.
Yeah.
Once it's on the system, well, no, they must program it knowing that it needs to change.
Yeah.
So as soon as it hits the system, it probably has one ability where it says, I'm going to install in this directory, and then it'll end up changing its code then to potentially do something else. But I'm not a malware author.
I was just from you said that. I hadn't thought about that on the machine. I thought it's beforehand, but I guess both would work, right? You could either make it morph just before you deliver it, or you could make it morph as it executes.
Yeah, that would make sense. I bet because it's all code, isn't it, at the end of the day? So if it's all written to ultimately change its state or change what it needs to do, then it obviously makes it a lot more difficult to respond to.
And if this was the 2000s, I'd be like, oh, so it must be changing the hash, the file hash. So now my AV doesn't work. We're way past that. That's not how detections work anymore. But you mentioned there, let's use that example of it installs itself into a certain directory, but the polymorphic one would change a different directory every time. How does that make it harder for you?
So in detection engineering is what is the term for it now is. So effectively what we're trying to do is build rules or signatures which what are you going to say?
I said we're getting into the defensive piece. I wonder why it's a problem. Oh, maybe I shouldn't.
Why it's a problem for defender?
Why it helps the attacker succeed? Let's answer it in that context.
Okay, so it helps the attackers succeed because the more techniques that they use, the more likely it is to be successful. Ultimately, as a defender, you need to detect as many behaviors as possible.
Yeah.
So if the attacker's malware has the ability to change and morph, for example, being placed in different directory paths, then if you don't have maybe you've got a signature which has detected the initial directory path, so you've generated an alert, but then the malware has changed then and has also placed files or maybe a C2 agent in another directory path that you don't have signatures for, and if it's not detecting the hash of that binary, then it's not going to detect it. So I think that makes sense.
That does make sense. But the people who might be newer to cybersecurity, directories basically means like folder, right? We can simplify it to that. C2 means command and control. So that's like how the attacker gives it further instructions or gets information back. I think those are the technical terms I needed to qualify.
Yeah, they were definitely the ones. Yeah. So it's just anywhere on the system where the malware is trying to hide from the attacker.
And
for the defender,
the advantage then is what we said earlier. It's more high success, but with less effort for the attacker. Because historically, if you wanted to have do polymorphic malware, make it evolve and mutate, very much like COVID-1 did to COVID-19, isn't it? A good way to think of it. In the AI example, in the kind of the COVID example, it happens organically. It kind of just does it itself. Historically, if you wanted to change it, you realize, oh, everyone knows how my malware works now.
Yeah.
Everyone's blocking it or detecting it. You'd have to sit down and rewrite it, maybe break it.
Mm.
Ultimately, it'll take you time. It slows you down, and then you wouldn't even know if it would work again next time. But this method, you can just fire it out there and reuse the same bit of malware over and over, because it's not the same bit of malware every single time, right? We get attackers. Once we know how an attacker works, we can catch them better. So if they keep changing, it's really hard to keep on top of them. Not impossible. We'll talk about that part too.
Yeah. Well, that's the cat and mouse chase.
Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, Tom and Jerry have been in the industry, isn't it? The attackers versus the defenders, which is one of the great things about being in the industry. But I think
It's fun.
one part that probably confuses me a little bit, but how is AI involved in polymorphic malware?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think we're looking then at more of a narrower definition of AI, or maybe what AI was beforehand, before we now think of it as the LMN, large language modules, the kind of one that can talk to you. You can just say, you can either let it be random and say, here is a list of potential directions you can put it into, pick one.
I
Or you
see
can
what
say,
you mean.
or they can even be more random than that, and they say, enumerate, do a kind of enumeration of all the directories that are available to you that you have read-write permissions to, and then chuck a little bit of maths in that generates a random number that just picks a random one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, those are the really common ways that you can kind of make malware evade things, because it just makes it unpredictable. Because if it's unpredictable to even the attacker, it's even more unpredictable for us who doesn't know how it works, and hence why it's hard to detect.
So effectively, the AI in the malware is just more sophisticated code.
It's just allowing it to make its own decisions given the kind of parameter. Yeah,
I see what you mean. Yeah,
this is what the
makes more
definition of
sense
AI
now.
at the beginning being like, it's not that crazy thing that works things out itself. It's told to do things, but it just means it's not as linear. It's like, hey, you have a little bit more freedom to move within these parameters and do so either randomly or the way you think's best.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense now. I sometimes overcomplicate it, and I'm like, how is there, like, in my head, I was like, how is there ChatGPT in malware? But it's like, it's all code, isn't it? So it's whatever's been written. But then, yeah, I guess if you've got more complex code, or you do have, I wonder if you could have like a language model within a malware binary that's placed onto the system, and then it can just make the code can talk to the GPT and just make just decide whatever it wants to do. It's like, what am I going to do next?
Or do we reckon we'll be looking for C2 channels back to ChatGPT in the future?
Maybe it's just talking to ChatGPT.
Well, that actually segues really nicely into the final thing I want to talk about, and I will caveat this that I told you I've started reading this paper about how LLMs are being used to basically as penetration testing tools or hacker tools by actually going through the steps, not just automating attacks. Currently, vulnerability scanners will use a library of attacks and just fire them. It actually has a level of intelligence where it can see what's coming back and respond to it, and then decide what to do next, which is scary because we used to love that little window of where we'd see, oh, attacker might have been successful, but we know it's an automated scan, and then we know that there's a window between they come back and sit down at their desk and review the results, but they actually get hands on keyboard and start making use of this access, which gave us time to respond. This is closing that window even more.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and I will caveat, I haven't finished the paper, so I won't cite it just yet. Maybe I'll have to do a part 2 when I know more about it. It's really interesting, though. You can probably find it if you Google it. And so I might get things slightly off, but the spirit of what I saw is that it wouldn't work for all attack types. It was quite interesting, actually, which ones it had 0% success rate in, and which ones were kind of 100 or higher. And it compared GPT-3 and GPT-4. I don't quite know yet how they managed to get it to do the bad thing, we talked about earlier. Maybe they managed to frame it. Maybe a researcher got more insight to kind of test it out for research purposes, special credentials.
I
don't know that answer yet.
I think you can. Yeah, we'll have to read the paper, but I think you can get, if you get your own API key. I don't know. Yeah, you must have a closed off in sandbox GPT.
Maybe. Because I think that's a good way to use those LLMs, actually have host it internally and not exposed to the internet, because then you have more control. You just have an offline data repository to work from. But yeah, that's really interesting, because I think that is ultimately, script kiddies is what was a real revelation to allow, or anyone can hack now because you download the script and go ahead. But yeah, they still have to work out, I'm in. What do I do? And the script kiddies normally made a hell of a lot of racket trying to work out where they were, what they got to, what they could do. The pro hackers would, hey, I know exactly where I'm at. I know how to stay here quietly below the radar. So it was, yes, it made them get on easier, but it ultimately didn't make them smart. They were still dumb script
Yeah,
kiddies.
that's a good point, because that's one of the things that I noticed, that I've just been on a VM like Kali Linux or something like that, and just been like, oh, how do I don't actually know how to use Metasploit, for example.
Yeah.
So then I just asked ChatGPT, first of all, how do I install it? It'll give me even the command on how
The
to
command
install
to
it.
install things on Linux makes you feel like a hacker when
Yeah,
it
it does. And then once it's installed, then I'm like, how do I use a specific tool within Metasploit? How do I scan my range of IP addresses?
Mhm.
And it'll just tell me. GPT will give me the line, and it'll tell you this is what this is for. So, like you say, it makes script kiddies, and it lowers the barrier of entry.
So that's one example, because basically, I mean, that stuff's already available in the manual, right? ChatGPT is just representing the data into a way you don't have to hunt for it. It's just your search engine almost.
Basically, yeah.
But the other thing that I was getting at is, it's not just a script kiddie using a script now, using a Kali Linux, which allowed you to basically point and fire. It's now the full attack sequence could be done by the AI.
that's
So
true,
I can sit there and start kind of defining what I want to achieve, maybe in the parameters of my LLM attack model, and then let it kind of go through the different stages. So
that's true.
I'm not sitting there having to interpret, okay, what happens next? Flipping heck, how do I create a user account, or how do I move laterally?
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why I think it's making it even easier. Attacks happen all the time. This is probably going to, if anything, I don't know if people can actually use this attackers. Maybe we'll see, ChatGPT source code or similar. Maybe let's not target them. It could be any AI model, and be stolen and created into, because there was, I forget its name. There was a Worm GPT.
I think I've heard about that one. Yeah.
Which was used as, I think it might have used a GPT plugin, or was its own kind of first attacker LM model. I think it's clever marketing, really. I don't know how smart it was at the point, but in the future, it looks like it's possible. So I think we've really covered a lot here into what the attackers can do with AI. We looked at phishing, all the other ishings.
Yeah, every single issue. Yeah.
Polymorphic malware. We looked at using reconnaissance and attack strings and advancing your initial access into further down the kill chain of the attack sequence. So that's covered a real broad range, and I think attackers, there's a lot to cover, because attackers have a lot of opportunities in their arsenal. And I think that's because for them, if they use AI and it's wrong, who cares?
Yeah.
We touched on that.
Yeah.
They can be wrong. They have that luxury. Part 2, we're going to really talk about defenders, how we can respond to some of the pieces that we've talked about, how defenders can use AI to make their detections better or make their analysis better. But ultimately, sneak preview, the differences in kind of requirements for, or the threshold of accuracy, let's say, for defenders is much, much higher than attackers. So how attackers use AI and how defenders use AI is drastically different. And that's probably why I've heard people say on other podcasts, no names, defenders aren't using AI quick enough. Look at the attackers doing all this. Why aren't we doing it? We're probably talking nonsense when we say we use AI. It's all kind of marketing BS. And while there might be something in the marketing BS, it's also because we have to be right as defenders. We don't have the luxury of being wrong 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah, we don't do it. That's the thing. If there is one mistake, that mistake is a breach, and that's an incident.
Or it knocks everyone else offline, and you are the breach.
Yeah. Exactly.
So join us next time. As always, you know where to find us. Please join our school community. You can find that on our website, or probably somewhere linked in to wherever you're watching or listening to this. Feedback, we love feedback. Whether you want to give it to us in the school community, we can have a two-way conversation there, or just comment where you are. We want to answer the questions that you have on your mind, and we want to take this in the direction that really is useful for people trying to get into cybersecurity, or just want to understand more about it. So Mr. AJ, thank you very much.
No, thanks, Josh. That was a great in-person podcast for the first one ever.
Yeah, first one.
Yeah.
Was this better? Was this worse? Do you like my background? We put more effort than I care to admit into this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let us know when you're listening to it if you think it sounds better. If you're watching it on YouTube, you think watching it in person is better, and we'll definitely make more effort to do that. But yeah,
hopefully we can clip some of this as well.
Yeah, we should be able to. Should be.
No,
cheers, Josh.
Right, all the best. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
I think that might be it. I think that's a wrap.
CyberSpace.